In this class, we can study about Narasimham Committee report. Okay. First, we can study about Narasimham Committee report of 1991. Okay. It is headed by Mr. M. Narasimham, who was the 13th governor of RBI. First committee known as Narasimham Committee 1 and Narasimham appointed in August 1991 against backdrop of balance of payment crisis. Okay. Then it was headed by Mr. Narasimham, and the banking sector reforms received a special attention only after the announcement of new economic policy in June 1991. Okay. Though there was considerable growth quantity-wise in the functioning of banks, there had been decline in the productivity and efficiency, ultimately affecting their profitability. The government appointed a high level of committee, popularly known as Narasimham Committee, to examine all aspects relating to structure, organization, functions of financial system. The committee attributed the deterioration of health of banks mainly due to directed investment and directed credit programs. Okay. Set up then this Narasimham Committee, there was two committees. First one was in 1991 against the crisis of BOP. It set up to analyze all factors related to financial system and give recommendation to improve its efficiency and productivity. The second committee was known as Narasimham Committee 2, was appointed in 1998. Okay. Next one, first we can study about the Narasimham Committee 1991. Narasimham Committee was constituted by a 9-member committee set up by the Government of India on 14 August 1991. It was set up to examine all aspects relating to the structure, organization, functions and procedures of the financial system. The committee submitted a report to the government on November 16, 1991. The report was tabled on Parliament and key suggestions were reduction in CRR, cash reserve ratio and statutory liquidity ratio. That one was the first suggestion. And phasing out directed credit programs, interest rate deregulation. Then next suggestion was structural reorganization of banks. Next one, change in control of structure of banks. Then establishment of ARF tribunal. Then change in classification of assets, allowing banks to raise capital, liberalization of capital market. These were the key suggestions. Then one of the most important recommendation made by the committee was a drastic reduction in CRR and SLR. CRR means we studied cash reserve ratio. Then SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. The committee noted that the high amount of CRR and SLR was hindering the productivity of banks considerably. We know some amount bank need to keep with them and some amount they need to keep with Reserve Bank of India. Okay, when they are increasing this amount, it will affect the productivity of banks. Okay, that reason CRR and SLR, they reduced from 38.5% to 25%, and CRR was recommended to be reduced to 15% to a range of 3 to 5% by 1996-97. Okay, then from SLR recommended to reduce from 38 to 25, and CRR recommended to reduce 15 to 3 to 5%. That was the main recommendation. Then directed credit programs. The committee acknowledged the role of these programs in extending the reach of banking system to the neglected sectors of the economy. Then through these credit programs, government can avail loans to all sectors of the economy. Okay, then however, it also called for re-examination of the present relevance of these programs, especially for those sectors which had become self-sufficient. Okay, then re-examination of present programs, especially for, we know different sectors are there, these sectors, those sectors which had become self-sufficient. Accordingly, the committee proposed that the directed credit committee should be phased out. It also called redefining the priority sector. Then interest rate deregulation, that one was another recommendation. The committee observed that the prevailing structure of administered rate was highly complex and rigid, and called for deregulating it so that it reflects the emerging market conditions. The committee observed prevailing structure of administered rate was highly complex. Then interest rate deregulation was another suggestion. However, it warned against instant deregulation and suggested that the rate be brought in line with the market rate gradually over a period of time. Gradually, they need to reduce the interest rate. Committee also recommended phasing out concessional interest rates. Then structural reorganization of banks. In regard to banking system, the committee believes the structure should consist of 3 to 4 banks, including SBI, becoming international banks. At least 3 to 4 banks become international banks. 8 to 10 national banks with a network branches throughout the country engage special universal banking. Okay, then 8 to 10 branches of network engaged in universal banking. Local banks whose operation would be generally confined to a specific regions. Then rural banks whose operation would be confined to the rural areas and whose business would be predominantly engaged in financing of agriculture and allied activities. Rural banks operation would be confined to the rural areas. Then to move towards this revised system should be market driven and based on profitability consideration and brought about process of mergers and acquisition. The committee also called on the government to stop further nationalization of banks. Then committee recommended to stop nationalization of banks. It also proposed that there be no bar to start new banks in the private sector being set up provided they conform to start capital and other requirements. It also called liberalizing the process of foreign banks entering to countries. Then other control of banks. The committee recommended that RBI should be sole authority in charge of controlling banks. Then RBI should be sole authority. It also called greater autonomy to be given to public sector. Autonomy should given to public sector. The committee believed that the internal organization should be there. Then for the medium and large national banks, the committee proposed three-tier structure in terms of head office, zonal office and branches. Okay, for national banks and large, especially large national banks, head office should be there, zonal office should be there, zonal office should be there and branches should be there. Very large banks, four-tier structure was proposed with the addition of regional offices. Then establishment of ARF tribunal. Those days, proportion of bad debts and non-performing assets of the public sector banks and developing financial institute was very high. Okay, the committee recommended establishment of Asset Reconstruction Fund. The suggestion was that the Asset Reconstruction Fund would take over the proportion of that bad doubtful debts from the banks and financial institutes. Means, suppose there are some bad and doubtful debt, means these amount should taken from this Asset Reconstruction Fund. All bad doubtful debts of the banks were to be transferred in a phased manner to ensure smooth and effective functioning of the Asset Reconstruction Fund. The committee also suggested that the formation of special tribunals to recover loans granted by the bank. The committee recommended that assets of banks should be classified into 4 categories: standard, substandard, doubtful and loss assets. It also called full and transparent disclosure to be made in balance sheet as recommended by the International Accounting Standard Committee. Next one, rising through capital market. The committee recommended that profitable banks and banks with good reputation should be permitted to raise capital from the public through capital market. Then another suggestion was raising fund through the capital market. Regarding other banks, the government should subscribe the capital or give a loan which should be treated as subordinate debt to meet their capital requirements. Then if these banks need some capital requirements, the government should subscribe their capital or give a loan. Then liberalization of capital market. The committee suggested that there should be no need to obtain any prior permission to issue capital. It also called for the office of the controller of capital issues to be abolished. The committee recommended that the capital market should be opened for foreign portfolio investment. Then these were the recommendations made by Narasimham Committee 1. Okay. Then the main objective were to increase the allocations of efficiency of credit, to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of banking system, to infuse greater competitivity into the banking system, to ensure rationalization in the interest rate, then to build a financial infrastructure relating to supervision, to develop competitive, diversified, autonomous and transparent banking system. Okay, then these were the objectives. Then we studied about recommendation also. Then after this one, government once again in 1998 the committee was appointed under the chairmanship of Mr. M. Narasimham to recommend reforms in the banking sector. That reforms we can study in next class.